Good morning and welcome to A Closer Look. I'm your host, Linda Fontaine. Today my guest is Andy True. No stranger to A Closer Look. He comes on from time to time to tell us what's going on with the school system here in Kingsport. He's the Assistant Superintendent. Thank you for joining us today, Andy.
It's a pleasure. Always enjoy being with you.
Well, we appreciate having you. It's nice to know what's going on. And with this crazy year, I know the school system is probably like you've never seen it before. Talk to me a little bit about it. But first, you were telling me before we started, there's a new program with Kingsport City Schools, Insight KCS?
Yes, Insight KCS is a program that we really enjoy having because it allows us to kind of open up the operations of the school system and show our community really all that goes into running a school system of 7,500 plus students. I think so often we think about schools being about what goes on in the classroom. That certainly is critical, and our primary focus is that teaching and learning process. But there's also, in addition to that, so many other aspects to the organization that have to work well in order for us to be a world-class school system. So this is our 7th year for Insight KCS, and really what we like to do is to have a cohort of about 10 to 15 individuals and really go behind the scenes and look at all of those things that have to happen for Kingsport City Schools to operate. So whether it's leadership and board operations, or how we handle facilities, transportation, school nutrition, all of those things that have to work together, we really like to pull the curtain back and let folks come in and really get a deep dive into that. So we're in our kind of our marketing period right now for this year's class. We've pushed back the calendar a little bit, obviously with COVID and making a lot of COVID type accommodations to the program this year, but we're really encouraging folks to go on our website and look at whether or not they want to be a part of this year's program. We'd love for our cohort, again, to be another strong cohort this year and to have that group of individuals that want to learn about Kingsport City Schools.
So what is the website they need to go to?
K12K.com. It's the Kingsport City Schools website. If you go to that, and there's a link right there to Insight KCS. It'll give you all the information, the schedule. We meet on 6 mornings over the course of the year. Basically, it's an 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Working breakfast and lunch to kind of make the best use of our time. But each session over the course of those 6 months really dives deep into one particular segment of the organization. So we'll have one on leadership, and we'll have one on kind of the vision of our district and our major initiatives. We'll do one on teaching and learning, and one on HR and finance, and one on operations. So all those kind of things that we try to kind of squeeze into one morning and really dive deep into kind of what makes KCS tick.
So is this a first come, first serve, or do people have to apply? Since you said you're going to have about, what, 10 to 15 people?
It's 10 to 15. It is an application process. We this year are waiving the entry fee. We know with COVID, we have a plan for where we think we're going to go over the next 6 months. We know that may have to be flexible. So we've decided because of that, we're waiving the normal $100 fee this year for folks that want to apply and be a part of the group. So we'll hopefully be able to get into our schools. Right now we can't. We don't have visitors in our schools with our COVID operations. So most of the first part of the program will be more at our administrative support center, where we can kind of deliver some of that information. We hope our health situation in our community evolves over the next few months to where we can get back into our schools, because that's really where the meat of the program is to be able to put your feet in the ground in the schools, see what's happening, ride a school bus, go into the cafeteria, go into the kitchen, and see how school nutrition works. So hopefully we'll be in a position as we get into second semester where the health situation in our community is to where we can have visitors in our schools to do that. So we're approaching it with some flexibility and some precaution, but again, hoping we can have the full scope of our program over the next 6 months.
So when are you accepting applications? Is that going on now, and when's the deadline?
It's going on right now. Our first session is actually November 13th. So as soon as you can get that information into us, and we can hopefully accept you into our program for this year.
Okay, so the deadline would be before November 13th.
Correct, yes. I think we have a deadline of November 11th, but certainly if we get folks there at the last minute, we will be happy to look at your application.
Now that sounds like a pretty cool program. I like that. I like the transparency, like you said, pull the curtain back, see how all the workings really are generated with the Kingsport City Schools and all that. And that's pretty neat, especially when people really want to get involved with their children's education and things like that.
Yeah, transparency is something something that we really try in all aspects of Kingsport City Schools to make a focus. And this is just one way that we think we can expand on that and allow folks to really look at what we do and how we do it and learn that. Hopefully take that information back into their social circles, into their conversations in their homes and their churches and their community. So when questions do come up, they will have information that they can share then about what really happens in our schools.
That's great. Word of mouth is always a really good thing. It's one of the best ways to really spread information. So that's a pretty cool program. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, always, every day, every interview this year, COVID. Now school, boy, what a tricky situation. How's that going?
You know, it has been tricky. It seems like that's all we talk about. And to be able to maintain a safe environment while focusing on what's best for students when it comes to the teaching and learning process has been really a priority for us since this all started back in February, March of this year. So what we are doing right now is really taking a lot of precautions in our schools physically and operationally to provide as much social distancing as possible, as much disinfecting of the facilities as possible, operating in a way that keeps kids as safe as they can be while they're in our schools, while still understanding, you know, our best instruction happens when we're face to face with children and being able to provide those learning experiences. So right now what we're doing is we're continuing to meet every week with the Sullivan County Health Department. We do that every Thursday.
All right.
So that we can get a good look at the health climate in our community. How are we trending? What does the data say? That allows us then to make informed decisions about what it is that we want to do or need to do operationally for the coming week. Whether it's you know, having all of our students in, we have had a hybrid scenario where we have our middle and high school in 2 days a week and then virtual 3 days a week to, again, the reason for that is to provide more distancing with those age groups. Really trying to make informed decisions in a way that puts the health of our students and our staff as a focus, while also operating in a way that allows us to meet our educational goals. So that has been an ongoing conversation that we have had and will continue to have as we go through you know, the next few months as we all deal with working our way through COVID as best as possible.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Since I don't have kids in school anymore, I was having a hard time keeping up with, well, how's it going? Are they Zooming? Are they in-house? Are they, you know, splitting, like you said, the hybrid? I wasn't sure what was going on now because I know the numbers were going up for a while. And I know in general in our area right now the numbers are going up. But right now, you have everybody in-house right now, or are they
as we record this today, all of our elementary and pre-K students are in 5 days a week, and our middle and high schools are in what we call a hybrid schedule, which is in-person 2 days a week, and then virtual using their technology devices to work with online curriculum to kind of have online meetings with teachers for 3 days a week. Again, we look at that every Thursday.
Okay.
And so week to week, we want to make timely decisions that allow for us to adjust to what the health situation is in that current moment. So we continue to do that. It is something, I think, as we've gone through the last several months, learning what that technology education process can look like. I know our teachers have worked so hard in order to provide engagement with students, to be able to have online lessons that move us forward from a teaching and learning process. But again, we know our best instruction happens when we're face to face with students and we have them in. So operationally, we've created an operations manual that kind of outlines those precautionary measures that we take while we're in school. And that's things like, you know, again, social distancing. We require masks of all of our students and staff. But also when you're in the building, you know, how does lunch look? You know, are we doing field trips or not? Are visitors coming into our schools or not? All of those little pieces that have to come together so that schools can operate in a way that's as safe as possible for our students and our staff.
So many changes this year, and I know it's hard on the parents too, because they don't know, like you said, you meet week to week and it's subject to change all the time, and when you have parents that work full time, it's got to be tricky for them as well. So you've had to take that into consideration. Has that been one of the hardest hurdles, or? It
really has been. Obviously our decisions are always made primarily, we always talk about, we're going to do what's best for our students. That's always our focus. But we at the same time recognize this has been a tough pull for our staff and how they educate, for parents at home that are trying to navigate this. I'm a parent with 2 children. If I was handling instruction for my children on a day-to-day basis, I don't think I would do it very well, even as an educator. So I have great sympathy and really thinking about the situations that our parents are having to deal with, not only from an educational standpoint, but just dealing with children in a COVID world and how we can best help our kids navigate through this educationally, emotionally, physically. Thinking about how we can provide as educators those kinds of social emotional supports. We've worked really hard this year to provide food for our students at home that need it. And parents have really had to work through a lot of that, and we try to partner with them so that we can have those types of learning environments, those social emotional environments that are as successful as possible for our families.
Great, fantastic. So again, K12K.com. If people have any questions, want to keep up with the latest info, is that where they need to go?
That's a great place to do it. We always encourage you to follow us on our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. All of those kind of ways that we can help connect with our community is a good place to get that information.
As usual, an excellent interview full of pertinent, wonderful information. Thank you so much, Andy True, for being here today. Andy True with Kingsport City Schools, Assistant Superintendent. And I really appreciate all that information. It's such a tricky time, COVID. I mean, who knew we'd have to be going through the waters this way? We'll be back with another edition of A Closer Look right after this message. Thank you.